y'all, it's Mary, and I am so excited that you're here for this month's topic, which is all about purpose. Y'all, it is a new year, and if we're not careful, we're going to be crafting goals and resolutions that aren't in alignment with our purpose. It's just honestly too easy to get caught up in the comparison game, looking at what everyone else is doing. So this month, I'm going to show you how to anchor back into your unique purpose and help you remember just how meaningful your life really is. All right, let's hop into it.
And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey, everybody, it is Mary, and I am so excited to be with you on this episode of this month's topic of purpose, because this is the time where I bring in somebody that I know and love really, really well. It just so happens that it is my mom this week, and I cannot wait to introduce you guys to her. But before I do that, I want to kind of rewind and ask you to go back, listen to the episode, What is Your Unique Purpose?, which I did last week. As you know, I kind of do the first episode. It's foundational. We get into sort of the theory, the concept of the theme of the month. And so last week, I really slowed down this process to look at what is purpose? Why do we need it in our lives? And how we can begin to cultivate it, to remember what it is. And I shared that oftentimes when people hear the word purpose, it can feel really overwhelming, like they have to have some kind of singular, one-pointed focus of what their whole life is meant to be about, like they're supposed to be a doctor, or they're supposed to save children from child trafficking. And it's like, well, if I don't know what that is, what is the whole meaning of life? And I break it down and make it really simple to help you remember that it doesn't have to be that one particular, like hit the bullseye kind of purpose, that it can be how you live out your life, a lifestyle, a way of being, and how you interact with the world. So I give you all kinds of examples on how you can get to understanding what your unique purpose is, and really hopefully convincing you that you have one and that there's a reason that you are here. There's a reason that you are alive. So go check out that episode. What is your unique purpose? And so then for the second episode, like I said, today's episode is bringing in somebody that I know for just a casual, candid conversation, because one of the things that I love is that I have really beautiful people in my life, and the quality of the conversations that I have with the people closest to me are so juicy. They're so full of like nuggets and tweetable moments. And I'm always like, oh man, I wish I would have recorded that. And so I love that because of the podcast, I get to do that. And as I was thinking about who I wanted to bring on this week, and I was like, who would have some wisdom, some unique perspective? And I literally was going through, okay, do I want to bring on Lindsley? Do I want to bring on Bentley? Do I want to bring on my assistant Liz? And then I had just been with my mom over the weekend, and I was like, I think it's got to be Gail. So guys, I'm so excited to introduce you to my mom for the very first time. So Mom, AKA Gail Hyatt, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. This is really fun.
This is literally like, I've done stuff with Dad, obviously, but this is our first like you and me thing.
Yeah. I don't do a lot of podcasts. So,
it's really a shame because you are one of the wisest people that I know, and not from a place of like, you're oh so perfect. I mean, I think one of the most beautiful things about you is your ability to embrace your humanness, but you've just experienced so much life that you really do like have so much knowledge to share with people. So I'm like excited to just tap the resource and to get some of that today. So it's going to be awesome.
Well, I'm very honored that you would have me on this purpose episode. So we'll see where it goes. I don't know.
I know. Well, this is what's fun because like, we don't actually know. For those listening, I said to my mom, I said, do you want to talk about like talk about it ahead of time, or you just want to see where it goes? And she's like, let's just go. Let's just see. So I'm like, okay, awesome. So we're going to be surprised just like you. Okay. So Mom, it's interesting because obviously like you have lived such a rich life. Will you give the audience just a little bit of a background of like kind of a snapshot into maybe the different seasons that you've lived up until this point, and kind of bring us up to current speed with like, if you want to share your age, that might be helpful, but like where you are currently, just so we can kind of understand like your life, what's happened since, since the inception.
Okay. Well, let's see, I won't say too much about before I was married. I grew up in a military family. I have 4 older brothers, traveled around a lot, and I went to college in Texas. That's where I met your dad. And I was 24 when I got married. Wow. And I've been married for 40 some odd years, 2 years or something. I'm 65 now. And I have 5 daughters. You're right smack in the middle.
Yep.
And let's see, they range now in ages from 30 to 40. Yep. And I've done lots of different things in my life. When we first got married, I was a working woman. I got my degree in high school counseling. And so I was a high school counselor and a teacher, itinerant counselor that traveled to little rural schools all around the country.
I literally never knew this.
How funny. I love teenagers. And so it was awesome. I've got some fun stories to tell about that someday if you want to hear them.
Yes.
But anyway, and then I had started having children. And then once I had children, I didn't really work outside the home, although at various times in our marriage, I did different things to contribute to the family financially because of our ups and downs financially. We worked a ball field and sold concessions at a baseball field when you guys were little, and had you guys behind the counter and different things. But anyway, but now I'm an empty nester, and here I am.
Yeah. And you've got how many grandkids?
Have 9 grandkids.
Yep.
And hopefully more to come.
So I just think this is so amazing because, it's like if I were to talk to somebody in their 30s or in their 40s, the conversation of purpose would most likely drift to career. Like what is the thing that you're doing from an entrepreneurial or career standpoint, and what is your impact? What does your legacy look like in terms of from the workplace? And so I thought it would be really interesting to talk to you about this because for most of your adult life, you were a stay-at-home mom. And I know that a lot of women who listen to the podcast are in that boat. I mean, it's kind of have split. I have working women, and then I've got, this beautiful group of mothers. And I think that oftentimes that role, and me personally, not being a mother, it's like I can't fully speak to this, but for friends that I know who have children and raise families, there can often feel like this lack of purpose, sort of like it's about everybody else and not me. And so did you struggle with that? Like when you were like before now, and we're all older and we were all at home younger, and dad was going around and, trying to make his businesses work, and some were working and some were failing and all of that. Like, what was the story for you then, like around what you maybe thought your purpose was, or was that hard to even know what it was?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think when you talk about purpose being related to a career, that's an easy place to go. Or even if it's not a career, if it's some mission, some big cause that you are a part of, those things are what I would think of if I thought, what is my purpose in life, or what is my calling supposed to be? And when I became a mother, I just kind of became a mother. Like, I didn't say to myself, now it's time to become a mother and I'm going to work toward that goal. I mean, it just happens. You just find yourself in the thick of it. And so, yeah, I would say I did not feel like I had a lot of purpose back then.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I did have women in my life that were older and had gone through the stages that I was going through and could give me perspective. And that was a lifesaver for me. And then also being around other mothers who were in similar stages of me, or that I was in, that was very helpful. So I have a lot of thoughts about it now, but at the time, it didn't feel very purposeful. In fact, when you're, knee deep in laundry and toys and trying to figure out cooking and all of that, I felt like I was being wasted. Like, I was a very capable, very smart, athletic, talented person. And I was stuck at home a lot, I wasn't a very good mother to begin with. I had to kind of learn the hard way, and my mom didn't live close to me. So it was not very fulfilling. I felt like I was failing all the time. I was tired all the time.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really hard. Just a little story. I remember during those days when I had two little tiny ones, because the first two were 15 months apart.
Right.
I remember Dad, he would come home. Now he's a 3 on the Enneagram. He likes things in order, look nice, right. Things were not orderly, but I made sure that when he came in the kitchen, that was the way he came in from the garage, at least the kitchen would look good, even if I had to throw stuff in the dryer or the dishwasher or, throw everything in a laundry basket, his initial first impression would be good. Yeah. And then after that, it would all fall apart. But yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. Did you have judgment on yourself? Like, it's kind of interesting thinking about, so like that would have been early 80s, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's interesting to think about mothers now, because there was no social media back then. So there wasn't necessarily like a whole huge big opportunity for comparison, like to see like all the mothers living this perfect Instagram life. Thank God, that wasn't going on. But it is interesting thinking about, like, did you feel judgment for yourself, like compared to anyone else, like you should be doing better, or you should be able to have a career and be a mother? Was there any of that? I mean, I'm just wondering, just because it was kind of a different time in our history.
I think comparison has always been around. Yeah. So you have neighbors, you have people that I went to church with. I had friends that I had known, from college. I lived in the same town I went to college in. So yeah, there's always comparison. I think it is way harder now, but it was tough. And that's one of the things that I had thought about as I was thinking about purpose, that there is that stage when you compare yourself to others, and you can't do that, because you have to recognize that you are unique, like you mentioned in your podcast, the first podcast.
Yeah.
There's nobody like you on this earth. And so, and what I used to tell you girls, and what I used to tell a lot of the teenagers that I worked with, God did not need more people on this earth.
Right.
During those years, the whole population discussion was happening, and population control and all that kind of stuff. So on one sense, you're thinking, God doesn't need more people, but he chose to have you on this earth. He purposefully created you because he needed your unique expression of love and character on this earth to touch the people that you will be touching in your life that nobody else will. And so I got that message somewhere along the line, and that really helped me to know that even though I couldn't see the fruit at this point, that there was a reason that I was here, or purpose. You know, the word purpose is really all about a reason. There's a reason for something. There's a purpose for something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be one thing either. Like my purpose is to, like you said, end child slavery or something. No,
Right.
you know, my purpose is to leave the world a better place than when I found it. My world, my sphere of influence.
Right. Well, and at that time it was, you know, for your children. It's interesting that you say, okay, this was something that you share with us as children. Did your parents ever give you any messaging about like who you were supposed to be in the world? Like, Gail, we want you to be blah, 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 or even the role of like what a good woman would be. Was there any messaging that like they were communicating as a family kind of system that was coming through?
I don't know that there was an intentional message that they wanted to make sure I got.
Yeah.
However, their life was a beautiful example to me. I was blessed with amazing parents. And my mom, being a military wife, I think she's told me that she lived in, 27, 28 different places over the course of, and sometimes she'd only live 6 months in a place and then they'd move again. And the big message I got from my mom was bloom where you're planted. Don't wish you were somewhere else. Don't wish that things were different. Bloom right where you are. And one of the things she always did every time she moved is she would unpack all her boxes, put the pictures on the walls, get everything set up like within a day or two of moving. So when you went to visit her a week after she moved someplace, it looked like she lived there for 3 years, Wow. So that was a big message that I got from her, and to be content with wherever you are. So I never longed for things I didn't have, or at least in the sense that I was complaining and discontent. I just loved wherever I was and accepted it as this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of interesting. I had a thought running through my head of like, I want to explore this with you to see your take on this. So like when we think about, okay, my unique purpose is to XYZ, or to be XYZ, or to leave the world a better place than I found it, whatever it might be. I'm thinking about so much of your life, and this is my own projection, right? So like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm curious about this idea of anyone's purpose, but particularly your purpose being linked to someone else's. So like because I'm just thinking about your purpose as a mother and the impact that you had on your children, but also like helping dad live out his purpose. And that link of, would you consider part of your purpose helping someone else live out their purpose?
That is a great question. And you mentioned something at the beginning about the different stages of my life. And it really, my purpose, or my understanding of my purpose, has not so much changed as it's evolved. And I will say this, the fundamental belief that I have about purpose is that it's not what you're doing, but it's who you are.
Yeah.
And so whatever your worldview is, how you see yourself, for me, I believe that I have been created by a God who has intentionally placed me on this earth, who loves me, whose intentions are good toward me. And yet he didn't create me to be a robot or a puppet. I have free will. I make my choices. But when I connect with him, you've also said, you go up before you go out.
Right.
When I go up and I connect with him, and I recognize that he dwells within me, and that my purpose is to be fully who I am created to be, to live fully alive as your
Hey, that sounds really good.
and the way I think that the way for me that it happens is that when I connect to the source of life, it's like plugging into a socket, when I am plugged in to that power source, then I get that download. I get the ability to become what I am uniquely created to become. And it's when I think I know better and I'm going to go off and I'm going to reject that and think that it's not a personal relationship, that God is just some concept or whatever, and therefore I'm left to my own devices. That's when I go off, spin out of control and go off track. And it happens all the time. I kind of have to rein myself back in. Sure. But anyway, so back to the question of different stages. So it's really about who you are more than what you're doing. So as a single, even as a single married person, I'm focused on a career. I want to do the very best that I can. I want to conduct myself as an employee with integrity, with honesty, with gratitude and humility, and constantly improving and bettering myself. So, that's kind of my focus, because I know that if that's who I am, it will result in me accomplishing what I need to accomplish and influencing the people around me, all those things. So then when I get married and I have children, then it's like all of a sudden that changes and it's not so glamorous. And so I have to think to myself, what is my purpose now? My purpose is still to glorify God. My purpose is still to be light and love in the world. And to spread peace and all the things that in my belief system, Christianity is about, and what Christ came to reveal to us. And that's where I'm coming from. And so that's going to play out if I find myself, getting angry at my kids and lashing out and doing, abusive things to them. Well, then I'm not living out my purpose as a mother who is here to show love and to nurture a little child into this world and to invest in that little child and help them to grow up to be a healthy adult. And so then, from there you go to, your kids are teenagers, and that's a whole nother world, because talk about not feeling fulfilled. That's the age your kids usually hate you, or
I would say like rejection, constant rejection.
Nothing you do is right. And so it's super easy to get confused and discouraged during that stage of life. But being focused on myself in the sense of who I am, what my character is, how I respond to all of those difficult situations, that's when I'm fulfilling my purpose. And knowing that, the end result is not in my hands. That's to me one of the things about purpose. My purpose is to be the kind of person that God has created me to be, but the results are not up to me. The results are in His hands. Because I'll tell you what, that's a lot of pressure. Yeah. And you just love and do the very best you can. And everybody's on their own journey, and the stories are not over. Right. And so then after teenagers, then, they leave home, go to college, get jobs, get married, whatever. And then it's like, wow, then I become a consultant. I'm not so much the teacher or the disciplinarian, but I'm a consultant. And where I am right now with you girls, all adult women, independent on your own, I am in a gorgeous, beautiful phase of friendship with all of you girls. You 5 girls are my absolute best friends, and I wouldn't want to be, with anybody else. Yeah. And so at the same time, I got to hold you with an open hand and say, my purpose is to love you, to be there when you need me, but not impose myself on you, those kinds of things, because you're on your own path. You got to do your life your own way.
Yeah. It's like getting to practice deep non-attachment,
and that's hard. You got to walk through that. But then back to the question of supporting. Yeah. So, there are times when my life was about my own job, and believe me, being a mom is a job. And so there were many days and nights that, your dad and I just did not hardly speak to each other. We were just going two different directions. But at the same time, he was my partner. And I was blessed to have somebody who I believed in, who I wanted to support, and I was grateful for. And so, I loved supporting him, and at every chance that I could, whether it was just in a conversation with him when he was discouraged, I was given the honor of being somebody that he could process difficult things with and hopefully encourage him, as well as in the public eye, doing things with him publicly. But there's all the different stages.
It's beautiful because, I talk about this a lot, how when we're living our purpose, we're never alone in that. Like, first and foremost, it's a divine partnership, talking about going up. And obviously I know being raised in your household and your specific lens of God and creator. And then for obviously my audience, that might be their higher power or source energy, whatever it is, interpret as you will, but there is this beautiful divine partnership. And then what I'm hearing also is that it's living out your purpose can be oftentimes still in partnership, that it's not like me on my boat by myself doing this thing, but actually Liz and I have talked about this a lot. My assistant, and when we did an episode together several months ago, and we really talked about this idea of the power of community and how we can do so much greater purpose when we're in communion with other people and when we're in partnership and getting to support one another and their vision and what their mission is and coming back. It takes everybody to do it. I think it's really, really powerful to remember, again, to take off some of the pressure. Oh, right. I don't have to do this alone. I'm not a silo and have to just figure it out by myself or remember it by myself. It's no, number one, I can go up, but number two, I get to resource and be a support or be supported by those around me to live out this purpose together. It could be like a collective purpose, which is really cool to think about.
That's right. And I think that's how we're wired.
Yeah.
That's intentional. That's how we're made.
Yeah.
And that's why this whole COVID situation has been so difficult, because we've been more isolated than ever in history, at least in my history. And so we've had to get really, really creative. And I think we've done really well at that, but we're still missing some of that partnerships that we need to have.
It's not natural.
It's not natural.
As you were talking about the different seasons and thinking about what I was hearing is different roles, like you were playing different roles depending on the season of life that you were in. And yet you kept saying that purpose was about being totally and fully who you were meant and created to be. So it's interesting to think about this piece of identity, because it's if you think about, okay, for so long as a mother, your identity, the role that you're playing is mother, and wife, but it's mother. And so that is part of the purpose is, changing diapers and making sure everybody's fed and clothed and loved and all the things. And then your kids leave out of the house. Was there grief for you? When you moved from one of these seasons and your role changed, was there grief when your purpose changed? Was that hard for you?
Nope.
Cool. Great.
Awesome. No, it's hallelujah.
Yeah.
No, I think that, there wasn't grief in the change at all. In fact, it's funny. I think back to teenage years, because probably the biggest shift is when your kids leave home, so now they've gotten their first apartment and all the things. And the teenage years for many are challenging, very, very challenging. And, even in the best of circumstances, because you girls were not bad kids or anything like that, but
Right.
there's just that need for you to be independent, and you're breaking away from mom and you're all that. So it's kind of hurtful sometimes, but I think in a way it's designed that way so that when it happens, you're like, okay, good. I'm ready. Go do your thing. Now you're on your own. I've done everything I can with you, and now we'll see where it goes.
Right. That's awesome.
But yeah, I wouldn't use the word grief, but at the same time, in fact, I would say a better word would be anticipation. Like, what's next?
Yeah. It's almost like I've heard this.
What does this make possible?
That's a very Gail question.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, my mother is like famous for many, many like one-liners and sayings. And in fact, was it last year for your birthday? We wrote on the windows all your little one-liners.
Yeah.
But that's one of yours that's like ingrained in my brain, is when you're in a season of something is hard or something happens and you don't like it, or it's going a different way than you thought it was going to go, to pause and ask that question, what does this make possible? Did somebody give that question to you, or is that like a Gail original?
Nothing is a Gail original. No, there's nothing new under the sun.
Well,
I'm sure Dad and I heard it from somewhere,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things, you and I were talking earlier in preparation for this show, and you were saying, what are some things that I did to help you girls discover your purpose, or kind of start thinking about that? And a lot of it had to do with little sayings like that.
Yeah.
And questions. They're very powerful questions, because what can happen is that I don't know if women are particularly susceptible to this, but you can get in this spiral of limiting beliefs, what I would call limiting beliefs. So you might say, for example, I could never do that, or I just don't have what it takes for that, or I'm not good with money, or I'm not good in unfamiliar situations, or I don't have enough talent, or whatever. You've got all these sentences in your head that are disempowering.
Yeah.
And what I both your dad and I tried to teach you girls is what you say, the sentences in your head are going to determine how you act and how you live out what that sentence means. And so you got to replace it with something better. And one of the ways of doing that is asking really good questions.
Yeah.
One of the really, really good questions is, when you're faced with something extremely disappointing or painful or whatever, what does this make possible? Or another way of asking that is, what is the gift in this? Or what's good about this? And then your brain has to go to work to answer that question.
Right.
Oh, well, let's see. What is the gift in this? And then you'll start coming up with stuff,
Yeah.
And another thing that I would say is, nothing is wasted. So when you fall flat on your face, when you feel like you're totally not living your purpose, and you've failed, you've made a bad decision, or whatever, then I want to say nothing is wasted. Every difficult thing that we go through or pain that we experience is gold. It is going to be used to enrich the lives of the people that we come in contact with, if we're living out that purpose in our life to spread that.
Well, and I think that I shared this a little bit on the podcast last week, just talking about how oftentimes the things that are the most challenging in our life end up becoming the very thing that becomes our purpose. Like how
we just think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and that's why, once you get through it, you can say, wow, I'm so grateful. I would have never, gone in and changed how that happened, even though it was so hard. It was so challenging. Like, it got me where I am today. You hear that across the board. People will say, like their greatest challenges ended up being their greatest gifts. But I think what I love about your questions is that it invites you into new perspective. It invites you into a new way of seeing something and gives your brain, like you said, the opportunity to find a new answer that is more empowering for yourself.
It has to go to work to answer that.
Yeah.
You know, if I say, what's wrong with me? Why can't I ever do whatever? You know, then my brain's going to go, oh, well, you really want to know? Well, let me tell you, you do this, you do that, blah, blah, blah.
Here's
blah,
all
blah.
the ways.
And it'll go crazy. But if you say, you know, what is the gift in this? What is this going to make possible? Then your brain's going, well, let's think about that. Oh, well, what about, you know, so-and-so over here? Maybe this is an opportunity for you to have something in common with her, that you've been wanting to get to know her, and you don't know, or whatever, you know. Your brain is going to start answering that question. It can't help itself.
Yes. And I was just thinking of a good question too, which is like, starting phrases and questions like, if I believed, like, if I believed I was fully resourceful, how might I approach this situation? If I believed I was fully resourceful, what would I do next? And that kind of gives your brain a chance to try on different, you know, scenarios. And I love that. And I think that it's so beautiful to think about, like, even with this idea of purpose, like, if I did know what my purpose was, what would it be? If I did know what I was created to do, to be, to have, whatever, what would it be? Just sort of like that curiosity. If I did know, because I know one of the things that you always have said is, if you ask us a question and we'd say as children, even now as adults, and we'll say, well, I don't know. And you'll go, well, if you did know, you know, what is it?
Yeah.
I love that so much. So one of the things that I talked about not yesterday, but the other day on the podcast episode, was this idea of fast forwarding. And I got this from Dad's book, of going to your end of life, right? So like on your deathbed kind of situation, or even you're flying high above from heaven and you're seeing your funeral take place. And people are talking about what they love about you and what they remember you for. For you, Gail Hyatt, what is it that you want people to say about you? How do you want to be remembered?
That's a humbling question. But it's a great question, because I could visualize, you know, I've left this earth, and all you, my closest family and friends are all gathered in the kitchen, around the kitchen table, looking at pictures about, you know, things that we used to do together and blah, blah, blah. And what would I want that conversation to be? And I think the first word that comes to my mind would be believing in, you know, like I want to be someone who believes in you, who encourages you, who helps you, who takes you by the hand and brings you back to yourself. You know, the definition of a friend, somebody said, was somebody who takes you by the hand and leads you back to yourself. Somebody who encourages, non-judgmental, always believes the best. You know, that's something that I've worked really hard to have characterize my life, is whatever bad behavior somebody exhibits, I want to say, but wait, we don't know the whole story. We don't know what's behind that behavior. And not that it excuses bad behavior at all, but it helps us to understand. And I think that that might be the biggest thing that I would want people to say, is that, you know, there was a quote, it's been attributed to a lot of different people, but it says, be kind, for everyone you know is fighting a great battle.
Yeah.
And I truly want to be the person who sees that in everybody and gives them the grace and the benefit of the doubt, not to where I'm being stupid and taken advantage of necessarily, but you know what, if I'm taken advantage of a little, that's okay. Yeah. You know, because that person hurt people. Yeah. That's another one that I say, you know, so those are some things that I would want to be said about me.
I love that. As you were talking, I was like, Mary, keep it together. Don't cry. I was like, oh, I didn't realize this is like my mother that I'm asking this question to. And, you know, Okay. So beautiful. And 100% you will be remembered for those things and so much more. Oh my God. Like that's just, oh yes. So beautiful. You're just such a light.
And it can be annoying. I've been accused of being a Pollyanna person and blah, blah, blah. And, come on, mom, you don't see it. You're not being realistic and everything.
Right.
And I get that, but I'm not going to change. So.
Yes. Get it, Gail. What do you feel like in this season is your purpose?
Well, it's interesting that you would ask that because nobody on your listener would know this, but I had a mild heart attack last weekend or about a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
New Year's Day. And it was a huge wake-up call. I feel great. It was definitely mild. I didn't need surgery or any of that kind of stuff. But it did, I kind of thought I was invincible and very healthy and all kinds of things. And so I'm like, where did this even come from? But what it did for me is it's given me a new purpose to take better care of myself physically, because I want to be around for a long time. There are more babies to hold and people to hug and needy people to help and places to travel, hopefully soon one day.
Yeah.
And all the things that I want to be experiencing in my life. And so my purpose has changed to taking better care of myself. As women, it's real easy to put everybody first, and then we end up suffering the consequences without even knowing that it's going to happen.
Yeah. And how powerful to think about that your purpose, just by you focusing on you, taking care of your health to ensure that you're going to be around, will then open up the possibility and allow you to, like you said at the beginning, like live life to the fullest and to have like deep impact. Like you said, to love on people and to help people, all of that, where we might go, well, that's the purpose, but that can't happen if you're not around.
Yeah.
That can't happen if you're depleted, if you're exhausted, if you're burnt out, if you're sick. It's like, if you think about, for most people, health is one of those things they'll get to eventually. But I think that having that be like, okay, number one is health, then it makes everything else possible. And
That's
like,
right.
how cool to think that that's enough. Like it's enough to really take care of yourself, because the ripple effect of that is so huge and so beautiful. Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to mention that. I wasn't going to bring it up. So I was like, she going to say it? Because I would imagine that when you have a health scare like that, I mean, even as your daughter on the sidelines experiencing that made me question so much in my own life. I mean, it was terrifying. But to get the gift to say, okay, what's really important here? What really matters? Which has been the invitation this whole past year, I think, is to ask those questions. As we wrap up, is there anything, I know you kind of thought about this conversation and had written down some notes. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure to say or leave us with?
Let me just, one of the things that I know I wanted to say is that to every one of you women who are listening, or men, if there are men listening, is that you really, truly matter. If you are living alone and you only see one person and that's the only contact you have, or whatever your situation is, you matter to that one person. Or if you have a huge platform and you're reaching thousands and thousands of people, you matter. And you matter because the unique expression of you on this earth is needed. And that's probably the biggest message that I would want to leave with your listeners is don't devalue yourself, but recognize that you are a treasure and valuable beyond what you know.
I think we can just end it right there. So beautiful. And we need to hear that over and over and over again. And so thank you for that reminder.
So welcome. I guess the only other thing that just popped into my head too is to tell everybody out there, you're doing way better than you think you are.
Yeah.
We're so hard on ourselves. And I can't tell you how many times I'll talk to a mom or somebody who has gone through some kind of failure. And I'm going, you don't even see how well you're doing. So just take that and enjoy it, and just see the gift in it, and just enjoy being you.
It's so cute. I was just thinking about, I just wrote down the word cheerleader, because I was like, we can add that to your purpose of you are a cheerleader. And then I remembered that you actually were a cheerleader, and I can think about
a cheerleader in the 8th grade. Okay.
Get it, girl. I mean, hey, you got those pom-poms somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, but you are. I mean, you were a cheerleader to everyone in your life. My dad, to my sisters, to me, to your friends, strangers. I mean, literally, like, you are such a cheerleader. And what a unbelievably powerful purpose that is. Like, whoa. So cool. Mom, I love you. Thank you.
I love you so much. So proud of you and the impact that you're having, and the gift that you're giving all these listeners. It's really a gift.
Oh, stop.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. Come on.
All right. Well, y'all, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this. Of course, share it with your mom, with your sisters, with your friends, with your girlfriends. Put it on social media. You can tag Gail. She's on all the places. But this is such a powerful conversation, and I'm excited because next week I'm bringing in a guest expert who is a purpose coach to talk to us about this. So we've got so much more this month in regards to this topic. So hang around, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And until then, remember that the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. I'll see y'all next week. Bye. Hey y'all, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.